Opening comments and keynote panel. Image, event flyer. The program in visual impairments, comic studies, and the Longmore Institute on Disability
presents
Adapting Comics for Blind and Low Vision Readers.
One-day virtual symposium, Thursday, August 12, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific Time. How can a visual medium be made accessible? Featuring 4 panels with experts in access, blindness, and comics exploring creative and technological approaches to open up this historically visual medium to blind and low vision readers.
Audio descriptions.
Tactile approaches.
Intruder.
Emerging technologies. Depictions of blindness in comics. Join us to see what new possibilities emerge from the conversation. Registration: https://tinyurl.com/adaptingcomics. AD/ASL/CART provided. For other requests, email beitiks@sfsu.edu. Supported by College of Liberal and Creative Arts. Presenting sponsor, Amazon. Introductory remarks. Nick Suzanis, Ting Soo, Emily Baytix. Panelists: Gina Gagliano, Matthew Schifrin.
All right, let's begin. Thank you all for joining us this morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you're joining from in the world. We are so excited to see so many people registered and to continue the conversation that we began a few months ago. My name is Emily Baytix. I am the Associate Director at the Longmore Institute on Disability. And a quick audio description of myself. I am a white woman in my 30s with some dangly earrings and some real frizzy curly hair, I'm now noticing. Just a few logistics notes to get us kicked off today. We have the chat turned off, except for, we'll use it for a few pertinent information that the host will be wanting to share with you all. But otherwise, we have that turned off. It's just not that accessible of a space. However, we invite you to use the Q&A space just as if it is a chat room. You can pose questions there. We will have time for Q&A and all of our panels, but also just use it to share who you are, get to know your other folks. In addition, we have captions, and if you want to use them on Zoom, that's great, but we know sometimes people like to personalize them, make them a little bigger. So if you prefer that, you can access them at tinyurl.com/Longmore captions. And we have one other option for today for a little bit more collaboration. We want today to just be the start of the conversation and hopefully make a lot of other options for people to get to know each other and work and collaborate on this topic. We know that many of our participants who are not going to be able to be panelists today still have incredible expertise on this topic that we want to hear from and we want you to share. So again, you can chime into the Q&A, but we also have a Facebook group that's set up, and we hope that will be a space where things can continue to percolate. And you can access that at facebook.com/groups/comics A11Y. So we hope to see you there in the many days to come after this event. Just a quick word about the Longmore Institute. We are very happy to be one of the co-organizers of this event today with Comic Studies Vision Impairments. And thank you to our sponsor, Amazon, specifically the Disability chapter, the Disability Employment Resource Group at Amazon. We really appreciate the support. The Longmore Institute is all about doing things that really shift perceptions of how we see and understand disability. And that often is focused on representations And it often has been about thinking through the way we talk about access in ways that are going beyond compliance and really just trying to get people excited about all that access can be, that it can be this creative art form. And I know that that will be a thread that will be really woven throughout all of our conversations today. So we are looking forward to learning and very grateful to be here supporting this today. Just want to give one quick shout out to thank our student assistant from Longmore, Nathan Burns, who is helping today behind the scenes. If you are having any tech problems, you can raise your tech questions in the Q&A, or you can send an email to us at the Longmore Institute at pklinst@sfsu.edu. So we will try to make sure you're comfortable and set up, and don't hesitate to reach out for help if you need it. With that, I will pass it to my colleague, Nick. Take it away, Nick.
Thanks, Emily. Thank you all for being here. I'm Nick Suzanis. I'm a white male with glasses and a Batman t-shirt under my sweatshirt and in a slightly cluttered room. I'm the professor of comic studies. We have a comic studies minor at San Francisco State, and I'm a maker of comics. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about the inception of this, how we came to be here. And so I did my dissertation as a comic book. I drew it and wrote it all, and it's published as a book on flattening. And I run this comics program. And in both those roles, I've been very concerned with access. How do I make education and scholarly ideas accessible? But I was aware at the time, even as doing my dissertation, that I was leaving some audiences out. And specifically, my metaphor for my work was very much about the visual system. And so as much as I was bringing people into the conversation, I was very much leaving them out. And so this felt like a big challenge to me. And as I was working on my dissertation, I would collect links that I would see about comics for blind and low vision readers. I remember encountering Shape Reader that we'll hear about later today, and dropping that into my file. And I would just keep collecting things and thinking, what do I do? And when I came to San Francisco State, I was hired at the same time as Ting, who you'll hear from in a minute, and was really excited. We struck up a great conversation, and she came and visited my visual communication class a few times, and we kept talking about this. And then this past year, I have some master's students that are doing their work in comics, and the question about how could that work be made accessible came up. And rather than seeing it as a burden for them, I thought this is a real opportunity. You know, there's an opportunity for us to maybe lead the way on it. And thinking about an industry that has just very little standards or very little anything going on around comics and accessibility. So San Francisco State had an internal grant. Ting and I started talking about it. We brought in Emily, and I've been so blessed to learn from the two of them. And we planned a first event back in March that was supposed to be internal, just to talk about and learn about ways that we could think about this question. The week before, we said, well, let's invite the public. We'll put it on social media, and 800 people later, we had quite a response, and we were so overwhelmed by that. We felt like we had to keep building on that conversation. So we've been sort of sprinting to make today happen, and we're just so grateful for all the people who are speaking. We have a terrific group of people to speak today, and all of you who are attending, who probably have so much more to contribute to this conversation. So I just want to say thank you for coming, and I'm really excited to learn from you all and see how we can keep expanding what comics can do and who they can be for. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ting Soo, and as Nick mentioned, I'm also faculty at San Francisco State. I coordinate the teaching program in visual impairments, which is a fancy way of saying I train teachers to work with blind and low vision students. So people who might be familiar with this work or unfamiliar with this work, teachers who work with blind and low vision students are typically referred to as TVIs, or teacher of visually impaired students. So in my role as an educator in the space, I've been in the field teaching actively for about 18 years now, heading into my, I think, 18th year of teaching. So my challenge is always ensuring access for my students. So my goal is always for my dream is for my students to be able to walk into their classroom and not have to encounter barriers to information in the room or barriers to their learning, that they can just sit and collaborate with their peers and design and create information for themselves, and essentially be in an empowered situation in classroom communities where typically our blind and low vision students are disempowered. So when I met Nick, when we first were hired, it was really exciting to meet somebody from an area of design and art that's very visually based, and to meet somebody who was interested in filling those accessibility gaps. For today's symposium, I'm really super excited to partner with both Nick and Emily and Longmore Institute, because I feel like this is truly a meeting of communities from visual media, disability communities, activism groups, people who are really interested in information accessibility and building technology systems to facilitate that sort of access. As an educator, I also see my role as kind of an ongoing learning process to figure out how to be a good ally to my students and how to be a true ally to blind and low vision communities. So I hope that throughout the day today, that we can all engage in this collective practice. If you're a typically sighted participant, learning from our blind participants, learning from the community, learning how to be a good ally to disability communities, and figuring out our role in how to empower people who might have been more disempowered coming into this conversation. I'm also very excited to learn from designers who have been in this very visual-based medium, and kind of collectively brainstorm opportunities for closing those gaps. So we, I forgot to describe myself. I'm an Asian female. I have short hair. I'm just wearing a V-neck T-shirt. And I smile a lot when I get nervous talking. Anyways, I'm proud of the work of the three of us, because I feel like it was a lot of work putting this on, but it was also that ongoing educational process for all of us to think of all the ways that we can amplify voices from the disability community. So one way we've tried to do that is with each panel for today, and we've designed 4 panels. If you've had a chance to look at our agenda, you can see there's a description for each panel. You might also notice that for each panel, we've tried really hard to ensure a majority representation of people from the disability community so that there is an authentic voice to talk about what the accessibility needs really are. And so on that note, I would like to introduce our opening keynote panel. You're going to see a pre-recorded video. We needed to pre-record it for scheduling reasons, but I know that people who are speaking this morning, they might be popping in live later, and you can also carry on further questions and engagement with them on the Facebook group that we have for beginning and carrying on today's conversation about comics accessibility, or hashtag comics A11Y. So in this opening keynote panel, you'll see Nick again. We've figured out a way to clone Nick, and Nick will be moderating a discussion with somebody from the publishing sector, and then also somebody from the blindness sector, both working towards closing that gap in accessibility and access. So thank you again all for coming and sharing your day and time with us.
Okay, so I'm Nick Suzanis. I'm a white male wearing glasses in a room with some books, and we're just kick off our event today. We're going to have a brief conversation with a publisher and a blind reader, an advocate for accessibility, to sort of set the tone of why this is so important, some of the challenges, and really get the conversation going for the day. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and we'll take it from there. How about Gina? Go, because
Okay, I can start us off. I'm Gina Gagliano. I'm a white woman with brown hair and rectangular glasses. And I am also the publishing director of Random House Graphic, which is a kids and YA graphic novel publisher. Our motto is a graphic novel on every bookshelf. And we just launched our line last year, and I'm excited to be here today to talk about adapting comics for blind and low vision readers. Matt, over to you.
So I'm Matthew Schifrin, a guy of average height in his early 20s, and I am a comic book accessibility advocate and do a lot of kind of audiobook creation and basically making sure that blind people can have access to comic books.
thank you both. Matt, do you want to set us off and tell how you came to this?
Sure. So my comic book adventures started when I was 4 or 5, and I was really interested in who Spider-Man was, and everyone was talking about this guy who could climb walls, and I had no idea who he was. I'd never seen a movie about him. I asked my dad whether my dad could kind of tell me about him, and Dad brought home a comic book, and he read it to me, and it was just an amazing experience because I'd never read a comic book. And mind you, my dad's from the Soviet Union. There were no comic books in Russia, and so we were kind of bumbling our way through this comic book together. It was like in the middle of a story arc, trying to figure out who these characters were and what they were doing. And it was just an amazing experience because there was so much action happening, and we were like in the middle of Brian Michael Bendis's Spider-Man run in the early 2000s, and like Spidey's getting thrown out of windows and like flying through the air, and he's barely conscious, and all this action stuff is happening. And I am over the moon because I am understanding every single thing that's happening because Dad is doing the describing. And as I get older, my friends get more and more into comic books, and they're reading them and they're talking about them, and I can't access them because there's no way to scan them, no pictures, no way to make the pictures tactile. And so I'm kind of stuck. I'm in limbo. And one day I'm on the internet and I think to myself, these writers, they're not improvisers. They must have scripts that they go off of. So I Google comic book scripts and I find the Comic Book Script Archive, which is a online resource of all these different scripts that writers have written so the artists know what to draw. And that is my ticket in. I think, yes, I found these scripts, I found these authors. Now, if I can get in touch with the authors and get access to the rest of their scripts, then blind people can access these comic books that sighted people have been reading and enjoying for years. So I start going to comic book conventions and talking to authors, and it's amazing because these authors are so receptive. They're so thrilled and energized by this idea of blind people who've never been able to read a comic book suddenly being able to do it. And they're extremely gracious, and they give me access to these scripts. And then from these scripts, not only am I able to experience these comic books myself, but I'm able to give that experience to other blind comic book readers by creating audio adaptations.
That's great, Matt. Thank you so much.
Okay, and I can start off myself talking about how I first came into thinking about comics for blind or low vision readers, which is at working in publishing, it became part of my job to deal with college course adoption requests. So I would get emails from different people at colleges, professors, administrators, who had a blind student in a class that was reading a comic book to ask, what can we give people? And this was always a little bit of a puzzle because the part of the graphic novel industry that I work in is a lot of very personal stories, less, Spider-Man web slinging over buildings, and more, people talking and sometimes having adventures, but more emotional stories, more working with a single person who both writes and draws the art. So in some cases, there's not necessarily a script. People script by doing thumbnails. In some cases, there is a script, but it's kind of a first draft where, the author will take that. And, I recently had a situation where the author did all the pencils and we looked at them and we're like, oh yeah, we need to add another emotional moment here into the story, because kind of seeing this drawn out, we're realizing that this isn't just quite hitting that emotional beat that we want. So, in that case with that book, if we went back and provided the initial script to a college for a course, the reader of that script would be missing a chunk of the book. So kind of working in this way of providing scripts to people didn't seem like it fulfilled the ultimate of, could readers have an experience that was equivalent to readers looking at the script have an experience that was equivalent to readers who were looking at the graphic novel with both text and art in them. And I think something else that is interesting here is also just that I think it's accurate to say the only time in my career that I would get these requests was literally from college classes. And it wasn't, I have never kind of gotten a direct request from someone who's just a general member of the public, someone who themselves is blind or low vision. And I, have this question of, if there are so many requests that I do get from colleges, how are comics publishers and comics in general working to be accessible to readers outside that space? And in prose books, of course, there's audiobooks. And that's kind of a space that comics is just entering into. But it does seem like we have a strange and peculiar industry in which there's only a small subset of the graphic novels that exist that have been adapted to audio that are accessible at all to blind readers at this point.
Yeah, I might jump in for 1 second. I think that's just such a strong point, Gina. And one of the interests, I don't make comics for blind readers, but as a teacher and a maker, I started thinking about, the people I'm leaving out a lot. And I started compiling all these resources on what was out there, and just really stunned at how little there is. There's little, and there's no sort of standard for it that exists. So maybe we can speak a little bit of that, sort of as the advocate, Matt, and as the publisher, trying to move in that direction.
From an advocacy standpoint, I think part of the situation is that even when we have writers who are working with artists on scripts, there's really no set method of scripting. Some people are going to give you very specific layouts and explanations of why this panel is here and that one is there, while other people are just going to kind of clump everything together, and they might give you narration and they might not give you descriptions, and they'll assume that the artist will kind of do a lot of the heavy lifting and create a lot of the situations. They're kind of going to give you summaries of pages as opposed to really explaining what they want. And I think that from their standpoint, that's like, if I were an author who's working with an artist, I'd probably do the same thing. In a lot of cases, accessibility is just something that is not considered by authors because they're not in a position to consider it, because like they're writers, they have deadlines, they have a thing that's due in like a week, and they just need to get it in. And I think part of the issue is that there are no laws, there are no standards that these things have to conform to. And as a result, people are just kind of doing whatever they can to get their product in on time and get it kind of out into the world in a way that sighted people can enjoy it.
Yeah, it is interesting how the audio landscape in prose has developed pretty recently. I would say over the past 10 years, it's gone from kind of this very very small part of the market, which is like, oh, like on your family car trip, you can listen to an audiobook, to this major, just like almost every book that gets published at a major publisher gets an audio adaptation. And I do very much wonder if comics are next on the boat with that. Definitely there are challenges there with audio adaptations for graphic novels, because unlike prose, you can't just read the script you got for all the reasons Matt detailed, all those panels where the author is like, something fun will happen in the art here, go for it, or I plan to draw something awesome when I think of it, more to come. That's not helpful as an audio experience, and that means the author or the audio adapters kind of have to figure out and work together how to bring that experience in a useful way that provides that description and understanding of what's going on to the reader who is listening, rather than looking at the page. And I think to get there, we have to kind of look at the motivation for doing that. We have to find the reasons for, how do we get all the publishers on board? How do we get readers on board with audio adaptations, or adaptations in other formats also?
That's great. And I think that's why we've gathered today, and why the response to the first one, wanted us to do much more is to really raise awareness. I think to Matt's point, there's just, I think it's just not something people it's not even on their radar for most people working in the industry. And I think when it becomes on their radar, and here we have a publisher right here with us, concerned about this, I think things have a chance to move. So some final thoughts perhaps from you two?
I just wanted to thank you for the fact that when people write you emails and ask, how do I make this accessible? You are there. You are willing to make it accessible. You're working with audiobook creation teams. You're really putting in the work and putting in the effort to make these kind of adapted versions, be they audiobooks or script access or whatever it may be. And I just wanted to thank you for really putting in the effort and making sure that blind people have alternative means of access to these books, no matter what these means are. But blind people now have them, thanks to the work that you're doing and to the energy that you're kind of giving this nascent form. So thank you for that.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. I feel like I am still so new to this space that there's so much more that I can be doing, that publishers can be doing in general. And I think that looking at adapting comics for blind readers, obviously it's a good thing to do, right? It's the right thing to do to make sure that all readers are able to access this book, these kinds of books. And then the other aspect of this is the reason of convincing corporations, right? And so, like Matt, you were talking before about how there's no laws or legal repercussions, and that's an interesting space also of how do we and corporations tackle that. And the other element is, I think that's in this conversation, is the market for this, which is both on the end of how do we make these audio adaptations or other format adaptations profitable, and the ideal way to do that is developing audiences, so doing more of these to the point that there is a large audience for comics for blind readers, so that all publishers are joyously engaged with making audio adaptations or adaptations in other formats, because they know that the work that they're doing is really reaching people.
I think that's a fantastic endpoint. Joyously engaged. I think that's the work we're hoping to address today, and the conversations that we're looking to unfold. So thank you both for setting the tone, and really looking forward to the rest of the day with everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Me too.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to learning a whole lot.
Well, thank you to Gina and Matthew, who will be with us on another panel live today. So if you had any questions, you will have an opportunity to engage with some of the important points that Matthew brought up. I think we couldn't start with a better commentary than Matthew's, explanation for like why we need this, and Gina's call to action for publishers. And we're very grateful to the publishers who are here today and joining us. At this time, we will now be promoting our panelists for our next panel and transitioning to something that there was a nice teaser for in this conversation, audio description approaches. And we have the wonderful Thomas Reed joining us as our moderator today. So because we're just doing one webinar for the full day, there'll be these little bumpy moments in between panels where we're getting everybody promoted. So bear with us just a minute as we get everybody in the right spot. And panelists, as you do become promoted, go ahead and turn your video on so you know you're with us.